Good morning, students. Today we'll start the study of our new subject, Information Technology. Before we begin, let us know something about this new subject, Information Technology. Many of you are confused about it. So first we'll discuss what is Information Technology or IT. IT means the study or use of system, that is computers and telecommunications, for storing, retrieving and sending information. Now, we can understand it as using computers and technology to store, to retrieve and to send information comes under information technology or IT. As from the name itself, IT means information and technology. So using this technology, which may include computers, which may include internet, which may include networking, for storing, retrieving and sending information comes under IT or information technology. IT is considered as subset of information and communication technology, that is ICT. In other words, IT is application of technology to solve business and organization problems, which basically include storing and transmission of information. IT includes computer and networks that connect them. So, now you are aware that IT means to use of technology to store and use this information. And you know that how much important information is for all types of businesses and organization. So this information need to be processed very carefully, and it is done with the help of IT. IT professionals need good unit is communication skills. So we'll start today our first unit, that is communication skills. In this chapter or in this subject, basically all the units are divided into different sessions. So our first unit is communication skills, and in that first session is what is communication. So today we are going to cover this first session, what is communication of unit 1. So don't get confused, there are different units and each unit has different sessions. And today we will be focusing on session 1 of unit 1. So the name of this session is what is communication, and the name of the unit is communication skills. Now, all the time, knowingly or unknowingly, we communicate with each other or with some other person. Whenever we speak, write, send something, receive some message, email, card, it is all part of communication. Right now also we are a part of communication. I am explaining something, you are listening to that and grasping that. That is also a communication. Communication means exchange of information, message, facts and so on. As it is clear to you, there are two persons sitting here and they are exchanging the information. So that is called as communication. When you talk with your friends, either in front of each other or on phone or through some message, you pass some information, you share some thoughts. All this is called as communication. See, here two friends are talking, that means they are again communicating each other. So, communication is the imparting or interchanging of thoughts, opinions, or information among people by speech, writing, or signs. Now, before we go into details of elements of communications and other types of communication, first we should understand the process of communication. See, this is the figure showing the process of communication. In the process of communication, as you can see, there are mainly a sender and a receiver. Sender sends the message and receiver receives the message. You can see here the sender is sending the message, the receiver is receiving the message and sending back a feedback. Feedback is confirmation that receiver has received the message. So this is the process of communication. Sender is sending the message and receiver is sending back the feedback that he has received the message. In this case, there is one receiver, but receiver may be one or many depending on the type of communication. Now we can identify the elements of communication process. Before that, communication process is transmission of a message from a sender to a receiver in an understandable manner. Here, this understandable manner is important. Understandable manner means the way in which your receiver can understand the message. So, the information from the sender should be sent only in the way which could be understood by the receiver. Means, if the receiver does not know English, the sender should not frame the message in English. He should frame the message such that it is received by the receiver. Now, we would go to the elements of communication. Following are the different elements of communication. The first element here is the sender. Sender is the person who sends the message. Send करने वाला is sender. So sender is the person who sends the message or information. The second element here is encoding. Encoding might be a new word for you. Encoding is the process of giving some structure or form to the message. Encoding means encoding the message into some structure or form. It can be group of words or some picture or some sound that forms the message. So, encoding actually means presenting the message or information in the form which is sent through the message or which is sent through the communication channel. For example, if I'm sending some message to my friend, maybe in Bombay, if I'm sending the message by a phone call, what I would do? I would frame a message in certain sentences to be spoken. This is called as encoding. That means encoding is framing the sentences to be spoken up. Means encoding is the process of forming the sentences which I would speak on the phone call. Similarly, if I am sending the same message through some text message, then framing and typing that text message is called as encoding. On the same time, if I am sending the message through some email, then again typing and framing that email is called as encoding. So, depending on the channel used to be sent, message encoding is done by the sender. In simple words, we can say encoding is forming the message, framing the message in certain form to be sent. The third element is message. Message is the message or the information or the thought or the fact which is to be sent by the sender is called as the message. The fourth element here is channel. Channel or communication channel is the medium through which communication is taking place. It may be through the environment. For example, when we are talking to someone face to face, the medium is environment. When I am writing some document, then the medium is paper. When I am sending some email or when I am making a phone call, it may be a electronic medium. So, channel is the medium through which I am sending the message. The fifth element here is receiver or the recipient. The person to whom the message is sent is called as the receiver. Again, receiver may be one person or it may be more than one depending on the type of communication. The next element is decoding. Decoding is opposite of encoding. Decoding is done by the receiver. For the receiver to understand the message, there are certain conditions. The first condition is he should use the same channel to receive the message. For example, if my friend sitting in Bombay is waiting for a text message and I had sent an email, then there is difference in the medium. So the medium should be the common one. If I'm sending through email, the person should check the email. Next is he should decode the message so that it can be properly and correctly understood by him. Decoding means understanding in his own words. For example, if the message contains some abbreviations or technical terms, then the receiver should properly understand those abbreviation and technical terms used by the sender. Then only he would understand the message, otherwise, he would not. Or take another example. Suppose the sender is sending some message in French and the receiver could not understand the French. So he could not decode the message. So decoding is understanding the message by the receiver. The next element is feedback. You can see a line from decoding going back to the sender. This element is called as feedback. After receiving and understanding the message, the receiver sends the message back to the sender that he understood the message. This message sent by the receiver to the sender is called as feedback. It is a type of confirmation that I had received the message and understood the message correctly. I hope you understood these elements of communication, that is, sender, encoding, message, channel, receiver, decoding, and feedback. These elements can be better understood by the diagrams given here. In the first diagram, you can see sender is first encoding the message in her mind. Then he is sending the message through a channel. The receiver is receiving the message, decoding in his own language and understanding the message. Then he is sending back the feedback. The same process is shown in the flow diagram in the below figure. Source is encoding the message, sending through the channel. The receiver is receiving the message, decoding it and sending back the feedback. Now, as we know the elements of communication, we should now know different ways of communication. These are different ways of communication. The first is verbal form. It means communicating orally. Orally means that is in the form of spoken words. Like when we talk to each other, like as I'm speaking out here, I'm speaking in some spoken words. This is called as verbal form of communication. Second is non-verbal form. It means communicating using body language, gestures, facial expressions, etc. For example, many times we use our hands to say hi or bye. Sometimes we use our fingers near our lips to make someone quiet. Or sometimes we clap to show our happiness. All these are different forms of non-verbal communication. Most of the time, we are using both verbal and non-verbal communication together. While speaking, we use our hands, we use our gestures, we use our facial expressions also. So most of the times, these two are used together. For example, when your teacher is explaining you something, she is picking up the concepts. Along with her hand, she is explaining you something, some processes. So, it is verbal and non-verbal communication both. The third form of communication is written form. It means communicating with handwritten or printed information. For example, when we are sending some applications in written form or sending some emails, it is called as written form of communication. The fourth form of communication is visual form. That means using pictures, diagrams, logos, posters, maps or charts. These are all visual aids which are used to express our thoughts. For example, sometimes we use charts to show something or maps to indicate rivers or mountains. We also use diagrams in our social or science to show something. For example, diagram of water cycle or the digestive system. On the road also you have seen some signs called as road signs like no parking, left turn, no U-turn. All these are various forms of visual communication. So these are different forms or ways of communication: verbal form, non-verbal form, written form, and visual form. Although communication occurs in all these ways, but all the time, all the communications are not effective. But what is effective communication? We call a communication as effective communication when communication makes the right impact and delivers the right message across. Here, right message refers to the message as intended by the sender, means the message that the sender wants to send if it is sent correctly and received and understood by the receiver in the same way, then only called as effective communication. You can see here, effective means successful in producing a desired result, and communication means exchanging information or news. So, effective communication is when someone achieves a desired outcome by sharing key information or news. Means when the sender wants to send some information and it is correctly received by the receiver, then only the communication is effective. For example, many times when you want to say something to your friend and he or she cannot understand it in the same way that you want to say, then such a communication is not effective communication. Having effective communication depends on both sender and receiver. If sender chooses the right words, take appropriate pauses, keeps a healthy body language, message would be sent and received properly. And he is also called as effective communicator. Now we know what is communication, elements of communication, ways of communication, and effective communication. We should have a look on importance of communication skills. These are different importance of communication skills, means why we should acquire that skill of communication. Why a person or IT professional should have a good communication skills, the reasons are given here. The first is get the message across correctly. Communication skills are very important to get the correct message in right form. If the tone of voice is right, body language is positive, and words are clear, the message would be communicated correctly. So, as a IT professional, we should have communication skills so that we can express our thoughts, our views correctly using the correct body language, correct tone of the voice, correct words, etc. The second importance is professional success. Communication skills are important for the professional success. All types of communication, that is verbal, non-verbal, written, and visual, are required and play an important role in professional life to convey and understand various messages. For example, if we have a shop, we need to talk to different types of people with different backgrounds. We should have good communication skill to understand their requirement and how can we meet those requirements. So again, that communication skills comes into play. The third importance is increased productivity. Communication skills are required to increase our productivity, especially when we are working in teams, so that we can understand what each team member wants to say. Also, it helps us, it here means that communication skills. Communication skills help us to convince other team members what we want to see. The fourth importance is helps in solving the problems or helps in problem solving. Communication skills plays an important role in problem solving. Also, if we are firm and have some problems, we can easily discuss with others and can find correct solution through different discussions. So this problem solving can be done with the help of good communication skills. For example, as you know, there are different meetings held in different organizations where people discuss their problem and find the solution for these problems. Next is better professional image. Good communication skills build a better professional image because a good professional is one who understands his role and responsibilities and conveys properly the message to his colleagues and team members. For this understanding and conveying of the message, communication skills are required. Better networking and relationships. Networking means having good contact with other people. So, communication skills help us in having contact with people, maintaining those contacts, and maintaining healthy relationships with them. So, these are the importance of communication skills. We need to develop good communication skills in ourselves. I hope you understood today's session. First, quickly would recap what we understood today. The first thing we started with is what is communication? Communication is exchange of information, thoughts, opinion, etc. Then we move to process of communication. In process of communication, sender sends message to receiver and receiver sends a confirmation in form of a feedback. Then we move to elements of communication. Sender, encoding, message, channel, receiver, decoding and feedback. These are the elements of communication. There are different ways of communication: verbal form, non-verbal form, written form, visual form. These are important ways of communication. Then we understood that all the communications are not effective. Only the communication in which the message is sent and received properly and understood properly, it is only the effective communication.